Hello and welcome to my first ever book launch party. So today we are celebrating the launch of Fate Mates of the Drakoan Season 1, Jess and Davin, which is my first book I've actually published in over 2 years. I cannot believe it's been that long. Um, it is it is really reassuring to actually have something published after such a long period of time. Um, and I will say, first and foremost, I have never done a book launch party before. So I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. So I would be happy to have any comments in the chat or in the comments of any feedback that you think I could do better. Anyway, so to get things started, I am going to be doing a giveaway. So I'm going to be giving away um, a paperback hardcover copy of Beta Message Drakoan, as well as some free ebooks, depending on the amount of traction this video gets. So the more comments, the more people are talking in the chat, the more ebooks I will give away. I'm going to be giving away coupons for whatever book from my back catalog you want to get. So there is that. So just a little something about these specific versions. These are my first proof copies. So they are not the final versions. They're not for sale. There is some cosmetic differences. So for example, with this one, kind of hard to see, but there is a little defect right there, which it's quite difficult to see. I only noticed it because I was actually looking for that type of stuff. Um, Additionally, the paper is a little bit thinner, so you can see kind of through there a little bit more than the final version had, but the interior, the story itself is all the same, and it will be signed. So if you want a free signed copy, the link to the giveaway is in the description of the video. So go ahead and do that. Um, uh, as for a little bit about the story, so here's the blurb. An impending alien invasion brings the Draconian military to Earth's rescue. But when they arrive, the battle is already over, and yet the fight has just begun. With no news of the fate of Earth itself, Commander Davin and his team descend to the planet's surface to investigate, discovering not only a web of mysteries in need of unveiling, but the enticing scent of a fated mate. With duty and instinct working against each other, Davin can feel the frayed edges of his life falling apart, and he's very much afraid he'll have to make a choice: his mission or his mate. So, like I said, that's the description of the book. This was a book that the series itself is something that I was really into. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to try doing a serial, which is these were all originally posted as a serial. But I've always liked dragon shifters. I like alien romance, and for some weird reason, I like romances that have nodding in them. Go figure. Um, so that was fun. And I just had a lot of fun with it. I had fun with the characters. So, like, um, both of the characters in the story are just complete nerds. So, like, for example, Davin has a bunch of Star Wars collectibles at home. And he gets very upset when his like nephew breaks one. And I don't actually remember if I had them bond over Star Wars or not. That might be something I can do with like some like extra storytelling down the road. But it was just kind of funny that like both that was one of the things I had decided they were going to have in common, was that they're both Star Wars fans. And then um so I just got a message in the chat from my mom. Can't wait to read your next book. Yeah, thanks, mom. I was a little like surprised when I was like, "Oh my god, my mom subscribed to my YouTube channel." Okay. Oh, but yeah, I really liked the character. So I took a lot of things from my own some like things that I enjoy and put them into the character of Jess. Interestingly, the name I realized after I did it was actually I know someone named Jess. That was not intentional in any way, fashion, or form. But they but yeah, I definitely, for example, the main character is into archery, she's into martial arts, and those are totally things I used to be into back in the day. She's into tabletop role playing games, which I practically have a room dedicated to all of my tabletop role playing games. I have spent way too much on D&D books. Just saying. So I just had fun with the character. And of course, because me being me, I put my characters in mortal peril because what else am I going to do? And yeah, let's start off with reading an excerpt from the book, shall we? So this is actually the final version, and you can actually see, for example, that the final version is thicker. So let's. Oops, sorry, I can't see it very well. Cameras are weird, but it's just barely thicker, and it just feels very dense in comparison. But anyway, yeah, you can see also that like in comparison, you can see a lot less bleed through on the pages, which is what I was looking for because this was something that I was also very excited about. This is something I hadn't done before. So this like full page background thing I thought was really cool. And it is scales. So I thought that was fun. All right. So this is reading from chapter her episode 15, which is titled Invasion of Privacy. So for reference, leading up to this, Jess and Davin had met but separated. They had decided that Jess was going to be safer at home and that she should stay there until the mission was complete. And guess how well that worked? Which ironically, this is like my least favorite trope in the world, but I realized I didn't give it the same conclusion that most of the time authors do. Like there's usually like one of two conclusions to the sending her away for her own good thing, and I picked option 3. All right, so let's get started. Jess woke feeling refreshed, but as if something was missing. She had the impulse to reach behind her, as if she expected someone to be there. But why would she expect that? She hadn't slept next to anyone in ages. An image of Davin popped into her head and she jerked upright, her blankets dropping around her waist. The room was full of morning light and she could hear her friends moving around in other portions of the house. That should have been. That. I'm terrible. Uh, that should have all been perfectly normal and familiar. But nothing felt familiar today. Everything felt different, almost wrong. She thought of Davin, and she wished she'd been able to stay with him, but she understood why he'd suggested she leave. He needed to focus. He had a job to do. She didn't. Yet still, the yearning was there. The need was there. She glanced out her window, but being on the second floor, all she could see were branches and one corner of the neighbor's house. He's not there, she told herself. But she couldn't quite ignore her instincts. They were lying to her, of course. She knew that. Page flips. She couldn't help feeling, but, sorry, she knew that. But she couldn't help feeling that if she just got up and looked down, Davin would be there. Don't be stupid. He's back at the shuttle. He can't be outside. He promised. No, that was just wishful thinking. And as she got out of bed, she forced herself not to look out and down at the space below her window. Instead, she went through the motions, half heartedly throwing on clothes and tossing her hair back into a ponytail without looking. She barely took in her surroundings as she stepped out into the hall and trudged downstairs. She was tensing slightly as she made her way deeper into the shared spaces of the house, even less motivated to interact with someone than she'd been to get dressed. Unfortunately, in a house with 5 other people, avoiding them was essentially impossible. There was always someone underfoot. "Morning, Jess," Inez said, quietly as they crossed paths at the base of the stairs. Jess sighed. Thank God for small favors. Of all the people to bump into this morning, Inez was probably the best. She was quiet and good at reading a person's mood. You could always rely on her to give you what you needed, whether it was a thoughtful comment, compassionate ear, or plenty of space. Jess nodded and moved on, yearning for a quiet spot to sit and think. Then maybe you should have just stayed in your room. She frowned as she slipped into the empty living room. Sure, she could have stayed in her bedroom, but then the impulse to think of Davin or look out the window would have plagued her constantly. Even now, the impulse remained, but it was a little easier to control here. And yet, there were reminders here too. This was the room where she'd seen him yesterday. She looked out the window, imagining his form in the late afternoon rays. The lighting was all wrong, which helped, but his memory was like a ghost in her mind, never quite there, but never quite leaving either. What am I going to do? She whispered to herself. It didn't seem healthy the way she couldn't seem to stop thinking about him. But he'd talked about mates, about how it was instinctual, biological. Clearly, that was happening here, because she really didn't know him from Adam. And she knew full well that biology could be a powerful beast. She'd known plenty of people with other neurotypes, had seen how it affected them, but her own brain had always been consistently dependable. She'd never needed to pay much attention to it. She'd never before had to suffer through the experience of not being fully in control of her own mind and body. It was unnerving, and she didn't like it. But it didn't matter what she liked or didn't like. She couldn't change how she felt, or how her mind and body seemed to be working right now. Even when she closed her eyes and tried to clear her mind, a practice she'd been doing all her life, thoughts of Davin popped up unbidden again and again. And it wasn't like the normal thoughts she was used to. Usually, she could imagine a river in her mind and just watch as the thoughts rolled on down the river and out of sight. The thoughts of Davin were like a siege. They ignored the river, rushing forward and demanding to be seen, to be heard. They ignored all attempts to walk away or move on. This is definitely not healthy, she muttered under her breath. Then a commotion broke out in another portion of the house. She jerked her eyes open, her entire body tensing in anticipation. Guys? She said as she leaned forward in her seat. What's going on? Then Amanda rushed in through the doorway. Alarmed, Jess jumped to her feet and ran to her side. Amanda, what's wrong? Her face was ashen, her eyes wide, her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water for a few moments before she spoke. Inez saw an alien lurking in the yard. Dread washed through her, and it felt like the moment they'd all been fearing had finally arrived. But Jess refused to let fear get the better of her. Maybe it's not an alien. Maybe Inez didn't get a good look. Where? Jess said, urgency calling her to action. Outside her room, she stuttered, her hands fluttering up and over her mouth. Jess nodded, awkwardly, wondering if she should offer comfort, but then decided investigating was the more practical choice. Come on, she urged Amanda forward. Let's go figure this out. Hopefully, someone else could look after Amanda while she got to the bottom of this. It's probably nothing, she said in a half-hearted gesture of comfort, but it didn't feel like nothing. Her adrenaline was surging, and Amanda's trudging pace was setting her teeth on edge. She wanted to rush to the back of the house and demand someone explain what they'd seen, but she couldn't do that with Amanda holding her back. So instead, possibilities flooded her mind. At first, she thought it could be Davin or someone on his team, but she easily dismissed that. He'd promised he wouldn't, and she couldn't imagine Van showing up unless Davin had broken his promise. She didn't know the rest of his team, but she had to believe they were just as reliable as Van. None of them had any reason to lurk outside Inez's window. Unfortunately, the other options she was coming up with weren't anywhere near as appealing. Enemy aliens, creeps, peeping toms, looters, thieves. As she made her way to Ennis's room, she got to where she was almost hoping it was Davin and his team, because nothing else she came up with had anywhere near as good of an outcome. When they finally reached the room, Melissa was cradling Inez and crying, and failing to calm her down, while glaring at Tom and Scotty, who were currently arguing. They were the ones creating the commotion. They were in each other's faces, leaning in and looking ready to come to blows. Hey, knock it off, Jess snapped, forgetting about Amanda for a moment as she rushed across the room and pushed the two men apart. What the fuck, dudes? Tom crossed his arms and coolly glaring at Scotty while Scotty pouted and looked to Jess for validation. Oh, don't even start. I have no idea what you two were fighting about. Tom is being unreasonable. She frowned at Scotty, suspecting the reverse was probably true. Tom was reasonable to a fault. She couldn't imagine him being the unreasonable one. Scotty, on the other hand, occasionally got riled up and forgot to listen. It was usually endearing, but sometimes it caused trouble. Tom? I suggested we stay inside, away from the windows. It is unlikely that anyone outside would be targeting us specifically. So the smartest choice would be to make ourselves as small as a target as possible. Scotty scoffed. Of course you'd say that. We need to protect our home, damn it. He stomped his foot and renewed his glare. Not be a coward. Scotty, enough. It's not cowardly to avoid a conflict. I think you've been playing too many video games again. I haven't been playing any video games. Well, then maybe you're going through withdrawal, but my point still stands. This isn't a game. We don't have to act like murder hobos here. Though I do think we should know what we're dealing with, otherwise we're just going to be on edge indefinitely. We need to know if it's a threat, and we need to know when they leave. I suggest we find an inconspicuous window and watch. Scotty huffed, but then nodded. Excellent strategy, Tom said as he dropped his arms to his sides. We might get a better view and be less visible on the second floor. Jess sighed. Fine. We can use my room. She turned on her heel and left. A loud din followed her up the stairs, and when she turned around, she found the entire household entering her bedroom. She shook her head, then focused on the window she'd been avoiding only a short while ago. The blinds were down, and she was careful not to move them as she peeked out. It was hard to see through the slats, but she could see the fence, the base of a tree, and lots of grass. No alien, though. She turned, facing the crowd. Melissa, Inez, and Amanda were near the doorway, with Melissa wrapping an arm around the other two women supportively. She could see that Melissa wanted nothing to do with comforting the two, but felt like she had to. Yearning filled her eyes as she watched Jess, Tom, and Scotty crowd around the window. By the tree, Inez whispered, barely audible. Jess nodded, then turned back around, focusing in on the tree. At first, she saw nothing. No movement, just a quiet side yard in the quiet morning hours. There was no one visible at all. But then she started noticing the shadows and spotted one that didn't fit. It was long and skinny. At first, she thought it was a branch. But the movement wasn't right. Too sinuous. Too curvy. Motherfucker, she said as she pushed back from the window. Jess? Someone asked, but she wasn't paying attention anymore. I'm gonna kill him! She stormed out of the room, ran down the stairs, and threw open the front door, half expecting the doorknob to embed itself in the wall as she ran across the grass, then turned as she hit the corner. She spotted him immediately. He was behind the tree, unmistakable, his long tail waving back and forth and giving him away. You motherfucker! You lied! She was on him in a blink. She didn't even remember the intervening distances. One moment she spotted him, and the next she was swinging. I just kind of love that bit. So that's something that kind of starts the process of them like learning to like connect with each other in a way, because before that it had just been all instinct. And she ends up pointing out how what he did affected her roommates and how it could be interpreted. And they end up, starting to move towards knowing each other and working together and all that sorts of stuff. So it's a bit of a turning point in the book, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was a good one to share a little bit about the book through that. Um, so as a reminder, like I said, I am running a giveaway. So if you are just joining or weren't on when I first started the stream, there is a link in the description of the video for a giveaway where I'll be giving away some print books of Fated Mates. These will be signed, as well as some ebooks from my back catalog. So next up, I thought we could do a little game. So this is something I've wanted to do for a while, but I've never gotten around to. And it's basically trying my hand at making a little bit of a not very impressive, shall we say, because I basically came up with this entirely today. So don't expect it to be anything fancy, but it's basically my first try at what's called journaling RPGs. So journaling RPGs are when you have a series of prompts that you use some sort of a randomization system in order to decide which prompts to use. So, and I have a couple of different ones that I've tried before, but I thought I would try my hand at a very simple one, which was themed, based on this series. So in order to do it, you'll need a D6 or you'll need a die roller, like an electronic die roller, which you can find them pretty much anywhere. Some people might have apps for it, but you can also just like search on. Sorry, I'm reaching for my little D6. You can also search for them on like an internet search and pull up one pretty easily. I'm gonna move over to my other screen. Da da da. So there we go. So the premise is you are a Drakoan soldier and have been sent on a mission to support Earth, which has recently experienced a devastating attack, and now the Earth military in space cannot communicate with Earth leadership. This is basically the premise of the book. As such, you have been assigned to one of the teams being sent down to Earth to reestablish contact with Earth leadership. Now, if you want to participate, feel free to tell me what you got and what you came up with in like the chat or in the comments of the video, depending on if you're doing this live or via replay. But I'll be doing it as well as we go. So here you go. How the game works. Each slide will contain a prompt. Some slides will ask you to create a name or description. All others will contain anywhere from 2 to 6 options available. Roll a d6, standard 6-sided die, or use a die roller to determine which option will drive your story forward. Share your result in chat or in the comments below, like I said, and be as creative or not as you want to. There is no wrong way to play. So this is actually really common for journaling RPGs, is a lot of times, you can go anywhere from just writing like a bullet point of this is what happened to full on like journal entries that could go on for pages based on a given prompt. So that's one of the things that's actually kind of neat about it, and that's true of all these like types of like journaling RPGs, TTRPGs, and stuff like that. That they don't have, it doesn't require you to be creative. A lot of the times, the mechanics of the story are built to facilitate creativity. So let's see what we got here. All right, let's get started. All right, what gender are you? Let's see. I have 1. So my Drakoan is a man. There we go. All right. 2. What human name did your Drakoan choose? Because Draconians' names are difficult for humans to pronounce, it is normal for them to choose a human name when interacting with humans. Choose a human name for your Drakoan and go by. Okay, so I am going to choose Alex. I have no idea why. I just randomly came up with that. All right. What is your role on the team? They're gonna roll another die roll. I got a 4. So I am a weapons officer. This should be interesting. All right, so our options are if you roll a 1 or 2, it is team lead. If you roll a 3, it's pilot. If you roll a 4, it's weapons officer, which is what I got. So my Alex is a weapons officer. 5 is tech officer, and 6 is comms officer. All right, we have Alex, the weapons officer. I'm probably going to forget that because I'm not writing anything down. Or maybe I should just write this down. Let's, all right, just open a document of some sort. In theory. Okay. Oh my god, it's being slow. Come on. Because my brain doesn't remember these things. So we're going to give that aside so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So we have Alex, the weapons officer. Okay. Where are we landing? We are landing in Australia. Okay. Alrighty. Describe where you landed. Optional. If you would like to describe where the shuttle landed, this can be a basic as somewhere in Paris to as specific as describing the locale in detail. Have fun with it. All right, so I'm gonna say, oh, I am suddenly forgetting how. All right, so their shuttle passes over the outback and is moving towards like the east coast of Australia, which is where most of the cities are. Um, what's striking is the fact that even though they know from their pop culture references that Australia should be like all like outback and like nothing there on the west side, and then a very like small pockets around all the coastline of populated area, everything looks unpopulated from the sky at first. uh, it's currently night and they can't actually see any light, which is what they were seeing from the sky from orbit, is that there was no power. And so they have a bit of a hard time when they're landing because it's a little bit harder to see where there's a good place to land. And they are seeing these like major like major things like that theater with like the arches that's there, like, and so they see that along the coastline and they kind of curve around and they're flying around the coastline until they finally find a place that they can land. So they're probably like just outside. They're probably like just outside of that city. I'm not pulling up any maps or anything like that, and I'm just like operating on like what little I remember of Australia. So, and I do not read. A little bit of puppy. Hello, puppy. Puppy's very eager. Always eager. All right, so I'm thinking about this. I'm like, I really do not. I do not read or watch a lot of content that's actually set in Australia. Now that I think about it, I think I've read like a few romances, and then there's of course Croc Dundee, because of course there is. Um, but well, probably the most that I've gotten like an Australian accent from was actually Farscape. Yeah, I probably, like I said, know more about what the outback looks like than what like the populated sections of Australia look like. All right, let's go to the next scene. When you land, what happens? Alrighty, here we go. 6. You smell your Nate. Okay, that's easy. So I'm the weapons officer. We just landed. We're in probably like a park. It would probably be the easiest thing for them to land in. Probably like maybe like a soccer field or something like that. Because that would make a certain amount of sense. It's a nice big plot of land. It's nice and green, and it would be pretty easy to park it there. So they get out of the shuttle, and they get out of the shuttle, and the team lead is barking orders at everyone, and I'm the weapons officer, so I'm like checking all my weapons and stuff like that. And then I kind of freeze because something smells insanely sweet, like super sweet. And I'm like lowering my weapon and looking around, because that, at first, it doesn't even occur to me what that might be. But then it just kind of clicks. I know what this is. I know that. And like the moment I know, suddenly my brain can't think of anything else. All right. So, while we're suddenly realizing that we smell our mate, what what happens next? We got 3. One of your team leads gets lost, maybe even you. I am not 100% certain how to pull this one off. Okay, you know what? I do know. So the team lead is barking orders. Everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but my head is not in the game. I'm not even like paying attention to my gun anymore. Maybe I even dropped it for all I know. It's probably not the only weapon I have on me, because like weapons officer probably have a lot of shit on me. Let's be real. But the next thing I know, I'm just walking. I should be with my team, but I just start walking, and I'm just like kind of like absently following the scent. I can't seem to resist. And so yeah, apparently I'm the one that's got lost. Alrighty, let's see what the next one has to say. And then you meet your mate. Choose a name for your mate and give them any physical traits you wish. All right. Let's see. Hmm. We're going to go with Sadie. My dog's name. All right. So let's see. Sadie is I'm going to say she's short and a little and she's got a little bit of meat on her bones. But not overly fat. She has pixie hair, pixie cut, and it's dark hair. But it's dark outside, so you can't really tell what color her hair is. Probably kind of hard to see, what color her skin is as well. And let's be real, Drakoans have red scales, so probably all human skin is like, it's brown, you know. So he basically is like brown skin, and no distinction between any of the types of distinctions we tend to make. Alrighty. All right, they are. Let's see what we. 1, spirited and surprisingly immune to the dire situation. I kind of like that. And surprisingly immune to the dire situation. So I will say that you're like, Alex is kind of like stunned when he first sees her. He sees her in the darkness and it's like, oh, and she's odd. like she sees him and like rushes up and is like, "What are you doing here? It's not safe." And and he's just so dumbstruck by meeting his mate that he's just like, "Uh-huh." And just like falls around with her, and she's like trying to get him to safety and stuff, um and he's just nodding along. Yep. And just like try like and he's not even trying to clear his head at all. um so there is that. Let's see, and then what's next? Okay, when you meet them, they are, what is she doing? She is fighting some aliens. So okay, I didn't think about this. So the reason she tried to like shush him away and get him out of there is because um she has been like fighting off aliens, and she had rushed out of her cover to get him out of the way, because she was just like, there was one that was just about to come around the corner or something like that, and so she needed him to get out of the way of danger so that she could pop one off. And so she drags him back, and she has like in like a little hidey hole not far off, where she has some supplies, and notably a hunting rifle, because I believe handguns are not allowed in Australia. I don't know about rifles and stuff, but for whatever, we're gonna say that rifles are okay, and hunting rifles are okay. Maybe she spends a significant amount of time in the outback or something like that. So she drags him back to her little hidey hole, and then she picks up the gun, and then she pops around off at the aliens, and that's what finally like snaps him out of his haze that he was dealing with. And he's like, and he just like says, "I think I'm in love," and like she like turns and looks at him like, "Likewise." All right. All right. But in spite of the fact that she just had that little sarcastic comment, she's not interested in mating. She might think he's cute and funny, but she has bigger problems right now. And so she is very much focused on taking out these aliens, because they are destroying her town, and her world, and she's not having it. She, like, the last thing she heard before all the power went out was that, like, the earth was under siege. So she assumes that the military lost, and that like she and people like her are the like last stand against the aliens. All right. So let's see. Though you're drawn together, 6. Oh, oh, they reveal they're in a relationship. Okay. So they're definitely like, she's, they're like talking while they're in there, and she's very focused on her mission. She's relieved when he tells her that they're here to help, that their plan was to reach out to the Earth leadership, and at first she doesn't think anything of that, and they're just idly talking, and she mentions that she's in a relationship, and he feels like his world has completely imploded. And I forgot to, and that explains why she's opposed to the relationship. That definitely explains it, doesn't it? Um so, but after a little bit, like, he's like shell shocked from it, and she's like, "Wait, if you're supposed to be helping to reconnect like the Earth forces in space with like Earth leadership here, what the hell are you doing next to me? You know, which he doesn't have a good answer for now, does he? And but that's when he admits that that they're mates, and she reminds him like, I just told you I'm in a relationship. All right, so how do we overcome this? All right, 5, passion. Oh boy, that's like the worst way to overcome this problem, I gotta say. So they talk for a while, and he convinces her to come with him to help with his mission to reconnect, Earth forces in space with leadership down on Earth, and so the passion that's like kind of brewing, like neither of them can really ignore it completely, but they're both valiantly trying to. Let's be real here. Um, like he's trying to do the right thing because she admits that because he knows that she is in a relationship, and while they might be mates, the a mate is allowed to deny it. They can reject their mate. So even though it is a biological imperative, that is absolutely something that can happen. So he fully recognizes that if he wants any chance of being with her, he has to convince her, but he has to like constantly remind himself, she's in a relationship, she's not available, and she's kind of having to tell herself the same thing because while he makes her horny as all fuck, um she keeps reminding herself, I'm in a relationship, I care about this person. And the more she thinks about it, more they interact, the more she's like, honestly, why am I in that relationship? Because he treats me better than that person does. He cares about me more than that person does. We get along better than I do with that person, and and she realizes that she needs to break up with them. Um, they're not exactly in a position to do that though, because let's be real, they're not in the same location. Um, but they come up with a plan after this that they will she will break up with him and with her current partner, and be with him, and they're horny bastards, and is the moment they have an opportunity, they fuck like bunnies. Yay. Sorry. Oh, that was a little ridiculous. um anyway, that was the little game. If you got to play, I hope you enjoyed it. um that was a little ridiculous. I actually enjoyed that. That was fun. I'm and I literally, the entire thing, I came up with all of that today. Absolutely all of it. Not play tested in any way, fashion, or form. But yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I think I needed that today. I was actually feeling really nervous when I got started with the stream, when I was waiting to get started with the stream. So that was a fun little bit. Anyway, I would love to hear if you did participate in the little game. I'd love to hear what type of story you came up with. Um, and feel free to share it in like the chat, in the comments or something. That would be really cool. And I'll probably put a link to that. Let's see. I can share that. Copy link. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat. And where is it? There is a way. Why do I always forget how to do this? Did I do it? Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So this is a link to the storytelling game. There we go. And hopefully I did that right. Oh, I had to set it to not private. Anyone with a link. All right, let's double check I got that link right. There we go. And get that link situated properly. There you go. And post. All right. So we've got a link in the chat if you do want to. And now I have. We don't need that. We don't. Okay. So I'm going to move to the full screen again. All right. So anyway, that's really all I had for today. I wasn't sure exactly how long I was going to stay on stream. I was kind of hoping I could get like an hour in, but yeah, that I think I did pretty good at 45 minutes. But anyway, like I said, this is out now. Fated Mates of the Drakoan Season 1. I showed on the other screen, if you can see it. The link to where all the places you can get the book are www.theeternalscribe.com/shop/Fated Mates of the Drakoan Season 1 with all dashes in between. But you can find it if you just go to theeternalscribe.com/shop. You'll find it right there. Oh, why did I do that? Sorry, this is just annoying me. There you go. So we don't see that ugliness. But anyway, this is available. The print books are available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. The ebooks are available basically everywhere, including Kobo Plus and a lot of library services, including Hoopla and Overdrive. I can't guarantee that it'll be available at your library, but you can always check and you can always request it. It's one of the beautiful things about libraries is that librarians want to carry the books that you want to have in their library. So if you request a book from the library, they might actually put it there. So yeah. Anyway, as a reminder, if you are interested in getting a free copy of potentially one of these, the paperback or hardcover, or one of the ebooks from my back catalog, the link to the giveaway is in the description of the video. And like I said, if you comment, if you are engaging in the chat, etc., then it increases the chance that you can win by increasing the number of ebooks I'm going to give away. Right now, I have it listed for one paperback, one hardcover, and one ebook. And I will be drawing the winners next Sunday, which I believe is the 9th. And I'm probably going to do a live stream to draw the winners, although I may just do a community post. But I will be reaching out to the winners via email. And if you are getting one of the print books, then you will be getting an email requesting your address so that I can ship it to you. Please keep in mind that, and I didn't mention this before, if you are going to win one of these, it has to be in the US. International shipping is insane. So yeah, sorry about that. I wish there was a better way of doing that, but that's just the nature of shipping in the United States, probably around the world, honestly. But yeah, so if you do want to win one of these, you do have to be have an address in the United States. But if you get drawn for the paperback or the hardcover, and you are not in the United States, then I can absolutely swap it out for an ebook. So that's all for today. If like I said, if this book sounds interesting, go check it out. It's like available everywhere. Like I said, I hope you check it out. I really enjoyed writing it. This book is one of the reasons that I've really like changed you know, how I do things. So this was part of me really turning things around because honestly, I was really struggling with keeping up with my publishing schedule before I decided to switch gears with this book. So, and that's one of the reasons that it did take me so long between having to take nearly a year writing and editing it, as I was doing it every 2 weeks, to like having to move, um, and then putting it on pre-order, etc. It did take a while to get everything squared away, but it was worth it, and I'm hoping that I will be able to be consistently publishing soon. My goal is 2 books a year. That is my current goal, and this is the first. This is the first book in that strategy. So yeah, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you thought of this book launch party. It's probably needs a lot of work. This, like I said, this is the first time me doing this, so feel free to leave me some feedback on what you